Ladies and gentlemen, please have a good welcome for Nigel Farage.
Rollo has set this meeting up, and I know there are many people in this room tonight who come from a business background. So I want to perhaps expand a little on some of the themes that Stephen talked about. I was invited to Twickenham earlier this year for the England-France game, and I was invited by a firm of employment headhunters. And so at the lunch, I said, well, of course, over 70% of your laws don't come from the British government, they come from the European Union. And the chief executive said, oh, Nigel, no, you're way off beam there, mate. He said, it's at least 95% of employment legislation comes from abroad. Now, we've touched tonight, our chairman and Stephen both touched tonight on the Agency Workers Directive. The Agency Workers Directive came into being on the 1st of October this year. And the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, not of course that he's ever had a job, but never mind, and George Osborne said that it was a pity, but there was nothing we could do about it. And the argument, ladies and gentlemen, has to be that if you're a nation, if you're a state, what you should do, if you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, in the midst of a recession, when unemployment has reached a 17-year high, when youth unemployment has reached 20%, you should say, to hell with the Agency Workers Directive, we are going to put the interests of British people and British workers first. And the list goes on, through health and safety, the Height at Ladders Directive. I mean, do we really need legislation to tell us that working on ladders is dangerous? I don't think we do. The madness of the environmental legislation. I mean, can you believe that when Chorus closed down in Redcar last year with a loss of 1,500 jobs, that Chorus were given, as part of the EU's carbon trading system, £300 million worth of carbon credits. They were paid 300 million sterling to close the factory in Redcar down and to relocate the whole lot to India. So even if we were concerned about CO2 emissions, and I'm rather more relaxed about it perhaps than some people, because it seems to me that volcanoes spew out rather more when they erupt than every factory in the world, but even if we were worried about it, the net effect on CO2 emissions globally has been zero. We are paying through the EU carbon scheme. British taxpayers are paying our manufacturing base to close down. It is complete and utter lunacy. And the worst of all of this is the political side of it. Because if we think the EU's carbon trading system is mad, if we think the Agency Workers Directive is bad for employment and particularly bad for young people, what can we as voters in this European Union model do? The answer is nothing. Nothing. We are rendered impotent because the sole ability to propose legislation in the EU and the sole ability to amend or change legislation in the EU rests with the unelected European Commission. Even if every single MP, if all 646 MPs in Westminster voted to get rid of the Agency Workers Directive, all the while we accept membership of this union, there is nothing they could do. By a margin of 10 to 1, our members of Parliament voted to say that prisoners should not get the vote. And yet they were told the very next day by Kenneth Clarke, our Justice Secretary, that the vote was null and void because we're signed up to the European Convention on Human Rights, and of course being a signatory to the European Convention on Human Rights is a prerequisite of EU membership. We were impotent then, and we're impotent over the economy. And the worry is that now, sector by sector, this new form of European government is taking control of the British economy. We've seen it in the fishing industry, of course, now for over 3 decades. I mean, what a remarkable situation that in what should be British territorial waters, we are allowed to catch by volume 18% of the fish that are ours, and the other 80% goes elsewhere. We know that, we've seen it. But what happened last year, I think, was far more sinister. And again, I'm picking up on Stephen's point about financial services. And when we talk about financial services, please don't think that we're just talking about bad or greedy bankers. We're not. The City of London and financial services is about insurance. It's about equities. It's about wealth management. It's about fund management. It's about foreign exchange trading. It's about spread betting. I throw that in because Stuart Wheeler's now our treasurer. I have to each time I speak. But it's about so many things that we in London have done fantastically well. And we've become the world's centre for all of these things. In October last year, the European Parliament approved a European Commission directive that means that now the entirety of what is Britain's biggest business is now to be regulated 100% by 3 new European regulatory authorities. And what makes me most angry about this is not the fact that the Lib Dems vote for this. Of course they would. And it's not that Labour vote for it, because we know that they're signed up to the EU model. What really makes me angry is this current Conservative Party masquerade as wanting to stand up for British business, and their own MEPs were 3-line whipped to support the transference of the regulation of Britain's biggest industry to 3 new European authorities. And ladies and gentlemen, believe you me, I am going to do my damnedest to make sure they pay a price for that. And what of trade? What of trade? We're living in a new global economy and nothing is going to change that. And in fact, as we in the EU decline, much of the new world is still growing. Much of it at 4 and 5% a year, as was mentioned earlier. And yet the most extraordinary thing about trade in the EU is that we, as the world's 5th largest merchanting and trading nation, are now completely forbidden, and I mean forbidden, from making our own trade deals with the rest of the world. This country has thrived and survived for over 5 centuries as a merchanting, trading nation. That is what we are. It's what we do. It's what we're good at. And we need to take back the ability to forge our own trade relationships with the rest of the world. And I tell you where a very good starting place would be. A very good starting place would be with an association of countries that now has within it 30% of the world's population, most of whom, William, have common law, all of whom speak English, many of whom are our own kith and kin. It's about time we re-established our relationships with trade, not just with our European neighbours, but with the Commonwealth. If we are going to have a future, a successful economic trading future, it's about time we grew up and recognised our future isn't Europe, our future is as a global trading nation. Now the question is, how do we do all of this? I predict tonight that British politics on this vital European question, which is racing up the agenda, isn't it, day by day by day, I predict that what will dominate politics over the next couple of years will be the promises of renegotiation. Yes, yes. Even Nick Clegg will promise to renegotiate. Quite what I don't know. But renegotiation. We will be assured by a Conservative Party, the very party that signed us up to Rome without a referendum, remember? The very party that has been actually the party of Europe more than Labour over the last 4 decades, will be assured they're going to renegotiate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, believe me, the crisis in the EU and the crisis in the Eurozone is so great and so compelling that there is nobody there with the appetite to renegotiate. In fact, they're doing the very opposite to that. They are trying, the architects of this euro failure are trying to use this crisis to gain yet more power. There is no debate about giving power back to anybody. And anyway, because of the ratchet by which European rules are made, rules can be made by a majority vote, but can only be reversed by a unanimous vote.
Oh, yeah.
They're clever, this lot, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, they really are clever. I don't think there's any prospect of renegotiation. And whilst I understand the arguments that are made, I actually think that the British public, and I think now that many, many businesses too in this country are saying, look, what we want is the kind of deal that the Swiss have, the kind of deal that the Norwegians have. Both of those countries sell far more of their foreign produce to the European Union countries per capita than we do. And they do that through a simple free trade arrangement. They do that without membership of the European Union. And that's being offered to us by the people running the EU. Even Giscard d'Estaing, the grand, glorious, almost regal Giscard, the man that designed the European Constitution. And I remember the day that he launched it, and I was their chairman at the press conference, and a journalist asked a question and said, but Giscard, you talk with this treaty about a European foreign policy. We never heard of Cathy Ashton then, but never mind. You talk of a European foreign policy. You talk of a European army. Surely you must understand that in the face of this, the British will never accept it. And Giscard said, the British need to understand that if they don't accept this treaty, they will be relegated to the status of a country like Switzerland. So it's perfectly clear, if all we want is a free trade common market deal that many of you in this room, I suspect, voted for back in 1975, it's on offer. And it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do by business. We have got to give, especially Britain's 3.5 million small businesses, a chance to live and breathe. You cannot, as a small firm, put up with maternity rights, paternity rights, maximum working weeks, minimum wages. It all sounds lovely, doesn't it?
No.
But if we can't afford it, the people that actually get hurt are the workers themselves. And what we would advocate in an independent Britain is that small companies with less than 10 employees should be freed from many of these social market shackles. We have got to say that just so much of this green agenda frankly is rot, is costing us all a fortune on our electricity bills, and is not reducing CO2 anyway. And if there's an argument that says that the government can set up 10 or a dozen enterprise zones around the United Kingdom, why not make the whole UK economy an enterprise zone? Why not do that? None of this can be done from within the EU. And so the argument is, we're not coming out of the European Union because we can't bear it. We're coming out of the European Union because we want a better, brighter economic future. And we're coming out of the European Union because we want to take back our birthright. We want to take back that thing that those that went before us fought and defended, and in many cases sacrificed all they had to give, twice in the 20th century, not just so that we could be free people living in a democracy, but so that the whole of Europe could be free and living in a democracy. We want our country back, and we're damn well going to get it. Thank you.